Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So I think this might as well become a series now because I've done videos going through bags of the previous years and I thought, you know what, let's just keep this going. While I love talking about new releases, but considering brands keep reissuing their styles, I think this series feels quite relevant. So for today, we're going to be talking about bags from 2007, and this is going to be part one. There will be part two, and this is in no particular order. I'm saving the probably most popular bag, or one of the most popular bags of all time, for last. So we'll first start off with Valentino. This is the Valentino Histoire bag. It's a very busy style. It was very in line with fashion of the time. Came out spring summer 2007. This was before Mr. Valentino Garavani himself would go into retirement. It's more of a structured satchel silhouette, firmer, boxier, but it's got a lot going on it. The adjustable braided leather handles, the buckle detailing, they were often featured in this very patent glossy leather, and it was very distinct. And also these kinds of bigger bags were becoming the norm to carry a lot more, and they were just a lot more visible as well. But I think what made this bag especially iconic was when Angelina Jolie and her daughter Zahara were photographed together carrying matching Histoire bags. So we've got one bag for Angelina and a custom mini bag for Zahara. And Angelina at the time, this was like peak Brangelina. She was probably one of the most photographed celebrities at the time. Like her family life was also very much in the spotlight. This was when celebrity paparazzi culture dominated, and handbags were practically characters in these tabloids. This was before the age of major social media. You know, yes, there were things like MySpace and blogs, but it really wasn't what we understand social media to be now. With influencers, we would still see celebrities plastered everywhere on these tabloid magazines. The bigger the bag, the more visible it was. So next we have the Hermes Lindy, one of these styles that blends comfort, functionality, and kind of has this effortless vibe to it. Typically, when you think of a lot of Hermes bags, they're typically very rigid, structured. Even though the Birkin can lean more slouchy, they're still overall quite structured bags, whereas this felt very different. It still remains a favorite among collectors, among people that love Hermes. A very great everyday kind of style, but it also was quite unique at the time. It has those side anchored handles that allow the bag to fold in on itself, creating that signature slouch. Very different from what we think of Hermes bags, Birkins, Kellys, Constances, but I think this bag has had a major resurgence as slouchier bags have become very prevalent. Now let's talk about Chloe. And for Chloe, I would say their it bag in 2003 was probably the bracelet bag. For 2004, it was the Silverado. 2005, the iconic Paddington. 2006 was probably the Edith. And for 2007, the bag that they heavily promoted was the Bay bag. Now, I don't think it took off in a major way as some of its predecessors, but this was the major bag for Chloe that year. It was released under the design team post Phoebe Philo, and the Bay bag was a bridge between, I think, that romantic boho style that we saw in the mid 2000s to something a little bit more structured, something a little bit more city smart. So next, let's talk about Chanel. Now, Chanel always has an assortment of different bags, but the bag I wanted to spotlight from that year was the Lucky Charms flap. Now, this is a style they would continuously reference. It has become a collectible bag. Felt very elegant and timeless, but then as the name states, it's got these charms, the symbols that reference the legacy and the history of Coco Chanel herself, and it was worn by many, including Lindsay Lohan to Beyonce, and it's still a beloved bag, very much a collector's bag. Next, I want to talk about the Gucci Indy. So this was designed under Frida Giannini's creative direction. This is very much a signature boho style, that kind of carefree spirit of Gucci. It was boho, but it was very glamorous. Boho glam was the kind of vibe Gucci was going for. It had a rigid top handle, but then a distinct half moon sort of crescent slouchy shape, curved metal hardware at the base and the handle. There were also these leather tassels. Again, it was very much like a shoulder bag, but it also came with this detachable longer strap, and it came in a variety of different materials. I think if you're someone that is going for this boho style, this resurgence that we're seeing with brands like Chloe, I think this is one to look out for on the pre-love market. Another bag that I think is worth mentioning, I was thinking about putting this specific style in part part 2 because there's going to be a part 2. I just couldn't include every single bag on this list here, but I wanted to talk about this specific bag because I think it symbolized, embodied the style of the woman behind this bag, and I'm talking about the Mulberry Agnes bag from Spring Summer 2007. Well, I don't think this bag was really like that hyped, but I think it signaled this shift in fashion. And of course, this bag is named after Agnes Dean. She was probably the model of the time. She had just won Model of the Year. She modeled for Mulberry. She modeled for Burberry. She was just in so many amazing campaigns. Her style, though, and her presence in the fashion world really signaled a shift. She went against the grain. While we would still see like boho and like Y2K styles, there was just something so excited about this kind of move towards something that was a little bit more indie, hipster, more rebellious, tomboyish, very playful. And of course, Mulberry would later do the Alexa and the Del Rey bags after iconic women. Mulberry did this, like naming this bag after her. It has the kind of like satchel-esque elements of the Bayswater. It's slouchier though, it's utilitarian, but again, not quite as polished as the Bayswater, not quite as like bookish as I think a lot of Mulberry bags are. The 7th bag on my list is Anya Hindmarch's I'm Not a Plastic Bag tote. So this was a bit of a different direction. This tote was in collaboration with the environmental group We Are What We Do. This was not a luxury bag, but it was more of like an eco-conscious statement to raise awareness around plastic bag waste and the environment. The idea was to make reusable bags cooler and more fashionable. Also, this was a very accessible bag. Now, of course, some questions the sustainability, as this was a bag that was made in China and was not fully organic, but I also think people praised it for getting more people to give up plastic bags. And then finally, we have to talk about Louis Vuitton. This was the year where they released one of their most iconic, best-selling bags. This is the Louis Vuitton Neverfull, introduced spring 2007. It was a response to the demand for bags that were lightweight, that were roomy, that were versatile, blending fashion with utility, right? Like when we think about a lot of these hobo bags of the mid 2000s, a lot of them had a lot going on, quite maximal with like fringes, metal hardware bits, padlocks, grommets, a lot going on. Whereas this was very different. I wouldn't call this minimal by any means, but it was definitely a super practical bag. And it became, I think, if you were going to get a practical luxury tote, this became the style to go for. In many ways, it competed with and rivaled the Goyard Saint Louis. A super versatile bag. It makes for a great work bag, errand bag, throw around bag, mom bag. Even to this day, if I see moms with designer bags, more often than not, it's the Louis Vuitton Neverfull. Or maybe it's the Goyard Saint Louis, but I think Louis Vuitton has taken the throne for this kind of canvas lightweight tote. I think people just really like the Louis Vuitton monogram and that kind of like logo and branding. And, you know, at the time, 2007 was still a major year for it bags. People still wanted it, even if they didn't go for these styles, be it the Balenciaga bags, the Fendi bags. People still wanted very visibly branded bags, but I think people also wanted bigger bags, roomier bags that were practical, but still fashion first. People could still feel elevated, but these bags still represented something that was very much on the go. But I think we started to see bags emerge with a little bit more polish, even though there's a lot going on with the Valentino Histoire. Like it's, to me, a very different bag than like previous bags of that decade, like the Chloe Paddington or the Fendi Spy bag. These bags were quite substantial. There was still statement, but I think there was, an elegance about them as well. And I also think, of course, paparazzi culture was at its height. Lindsay Lohan, Nicole Richie, Mary-Kate and Ashley, Paris Hilton, Kate Moss, they were still heavily photographed with their big giant sunglasses and oversized bags. They were sources of inspiration, but I also think early online platforms like Purseforum, Purseblog, online blog communities that built collective knowledge bases. People could express their interests in certain bags. It was still quite niche to do this, but these online platforms were growing. Luxury spending was also very much at its height. Handbags were seen as worth the splurge. They were seen as like the ultimate daily luxury companion.